Hey guys, Brew here to tell you about the latest from Full House Brew Crew, Glasgow Grin, on February 6 on Rock of Angels Records. The album has 10 tracks, 34 minutes in length, and this is the band's 5th full-length studio album. They are a Greek metal band. When it comes to the design of this album, the album is simple in terms of how it presents itself, but that simplicity really comes from the overall sound approach that the songs have. Obviously, being 34 minutes in length doesn't hurt that sense of simplicity because it makes the experience a little bit quicker. It's easier for you to get where you're going when the album doesn't really lose any time taking you on side quests, if you will. So it's a more direct approach, one that works for the sound, one that works for these songs, and I think it works for the record overall because it allows certain subtle elements, especially to creep in the bottom half of the record. I think the bottom half of the album is a lot more dynamic than the first half of the album. The first half of the album has more of a sense of consistency to it, with a lot more commonalities between the songs than differences. But once again, the overall length of this record doesn't allow those commonalities to become ultra repetitive and therefore ruining the entire record. You still feel like each and every single song has a sense of uniqueness, a sense of identity, even though there are a lot of similar traces crossing paths from song to song. Once you get into the sound of this album, I felt like the record, while tying really well with the past of the band as far as the groovier side of their sound, it definitely offers some new elements, or at least emphasized some new elements that I hadn't seen this emphasized before. And what I mean by that is that this album brings in a little bit more of a traditional hardcore sound, and it also brings a metalcore sound experience that is really interesting to me. The part about the metalcore experience that it's interesting to me is that they didn't go with a modern metalcore approach, which normally has quite a bit of synths. I think if they had gone in that direction, that would completely distort the DNA of the band and who they are and what they've done up until this point. Keeping the metalcore sound of this record a little bit more of a throwback to the origins of the genre allows also that hardcore piece to kind of connect the dots between the more metalcore side and the more groovier side in order to create a more consistent sound and in order to create also a sound that better represents who this band is and what they have done musically up to this point. So I really like the production on this album because it emphasizes these three genres really well, but always keeping them together and grounded in a way that allows the listener to feel connected with the record, specifically if you're a listener coming into this album knowing the history and the discography of the band. Now, when it comes to the driving forces behind the sound, I think it's fair to say that the guitars play a predominant role in this entire album. The guitars sound amazing, from riffs to leads to solos, the grooviness of the riffs, the heaviness of the riffs, the size of the songs guitar-wise. This is a really well played and well executed guitar album that has a great tonality to it, and that tonality to the guitars is one of the consistent points throughout the entire record. Regardless of how groovy, how heavy, how driven a song is, the way the guitars sound and the way they come across, the texture within that sound stays extremely consistent top to bottom, and that kind of becomes the fingerprint of the entire record. Regardless if a song is a little bit more hardcore, a little bit more metalcore, a little bit more groove, the overall guitar sound is very consistent. It's a nice blanket across all 10 songs that really brings it all together, allowing the guitars to always be the main focus of every single track and really push these tracks forward with a lot of intensity, a lot of aggression. It's an album that doesn't really have pauses or breaks. It's just a question of how faster. That's kind of how this album moves as far as the guitar sound is concerned. Once you get into the drums, I like the drums on this record tremendously for two main reasons. One, they help add size, depth, thickness to the way the songs come across, not allowing the songs to just feel like they're just guitars and therefore perhaps creating a little bit more of a narrow experience. The drums really add a lot of life, a lot of substance to the tracks, expanding the footprint of the songs, making the songs feel a little bit more colossal, a little bit more robust, but not empty on the inside, still very full with a lot of elements there, just making the songs as wide, as big as possible, but always concentrating on the fact that you want everything within those songs to still feel very robust and very thick, and the drums really do a wonderful job at that. The other aspect that I always enjoy about this band when it comes to the drum sound is that it doesn't overshadow what the big picture is all about as far as sound is concerned. For as heavy as the drums are just another piece of the puzzle that complements the overall sound, and it doesn't really become a defining element, at least not in the forefront, giving that space and that room to the guitars, making the album feel a little bit better put together, a little bit more mature, a little bit more well-rounded as far as the sound is concerned. Also helping with the bandwidth of the songs allows the guitars to have a little bit more room to maneuver. Really good execution, really good partnership, I should say, between the guitars and drums. How they put this whole record together really allowed the album to be a force of the two, with one peaking a little bit more forward than the other. As far as vocals are concerned, I really like the aggressive and intensive side of the vocal approach. That is perhaps the most consistent element of this album. Definitely you see that sense of consistency in the first half of the record, but similar to the sound and in terms of the uniquenesses that start to creep in the bottom half of the record, you're going to see some differences vocally creeping in the bottom half as well. But once again, I feel like those are driven by the changes in sound, the slight changes in direction, and the vocals have to adapt and adjust to those in order for the songs to feel complete and balanced out and not necessarily lopsided. You can't take a one-size-fits-all approach, specifically if you start to change what's in the background, and they do that slowly throughout this album, and the vocals change slowly throughout this album. Obviously, the harsher delivery, the more consistent delivery stays true top to bottom, and then that also brings a sense of overall consistency to how this record comes across. Definitely my favorite record from the band. I would go as far as to say this is the band's best album to date, the most complete record, the better produced album, the one that really showcases everything that this band can do on a musical side, on a vocal side. Keeping the album short, it's perfect for a record that has this sound, this aggression, this intensity, a more hardcore overall experience. Fits this band really well. So I think this is an album that showcases what they have done, but it also showcases what they could do and perhaps will do in the future. As far as favorite songs are concerned, I want to start off with Glasgow Grin, the title of the record, the opening track. It's a really short track, under 3 minutes, but I feel like it delivers the message. It's aggressive, it's intense, mixes metalcore and groove metal perfect together, giving the track this linearity of sound, but still super focused in terms of how the guitars execute the linearity and how the guitars really push the listener forward and through it, allowing the drums to complement as far as size and texture. Gives the song a little bit more of life. It gives definitely the song a little bit more of energy. It's a robust sounding track. The track feels dark at times, it feels menacing, but that plays into the lyrical content, into the theme of the song, and also in terms of how the vocals get delivered. Definitely a track that hits really hard, having a lot of hardcore elements in it, but the mixture of metalcore and groove metal is really what rises to the top, keeping the track short, compact, and allows it to be a little bit more impactful as the record gets going. It also kind of gives you an idea of what the rest of the album is going to be all about when this is the song that they decided to start with. Then you have a track like From the Gutter. I love the guitar sound. This is one of those tracks that it's all about the guitars. It's about how the guitars sound, how they come across, what impact do they have, bringing a little bit more of a pure hardcore sound experience to the song. The way the guitars sound definitely has a little bit more of a grounded in roots and just pure hardcore. This track reminds me a lot sonically of Hatebreed. It has that hardcore traditional elements and vibes all the way through the song, allowing the guitars to really be the focal point with the vocals to determine where this track can go. But definitely a track that's dominated by the guitar sound and execution, and that more Hatebreed hardcore vibe permeates throughout the entire track, more so on a sonic side than a vocal side. Last, definitely not least, this is my favorite song on the entire album, Distant Star. I would say that this is the most metalcore song that this album offers, because it has that metalcore traditional design. Really heavy verses, short, heavy, musically, vocally, really compact, adding a lot of aggression, a lot of intensity. Then moves into the chorus, and the chorus opens up. Clean vocals, more melodic guitars, a much softer sound, much softer texture, a much softer experience. that is prototypical traditional metalcore style approach as far as songwriting is concerned and as far as execution goes, creating a clear divide between the heavier side of the band and the more melodic, melancholic side of the band. This track also has a little bit more texture, a little bit more sonic texture added to it, specifically once it gets into that chorus and how melodic it is, which also plays really well into the more modern metalcore sound that exists right now, detaching itself a little bit more from the traditional, going a little bit more into the modern, but overall keeping the standard metalcore style track design alive and well. The one caveat that this track throws, which I thought was really cool, because on a track that really lives or dies by that more metalcore overall experience, both musically and vocally, adding a guitar solo, really extended guitar solo to this track, definitely changes the dynamics a little bit. You're perhaps expecting a breakdown, a really heavy breakdown, but instead of that, you get more guitar aroma infused into the track. And this is where they bring in their older influences and their older DNA into a more modern track and allow these two worlds to coexist perfectly. At the end of the day, if you have great executors behind those guitars, you're able to do that, and you're able to add a lot more life, a lot more energy, a lot more value to songs that otherwise would be very cookie cutter. This is by far my favorite song. I love the chorus. I love that more metalcore overall approach. The vocals in the chorus are phenomenal, as is the sound, and the track really stands out in that bottom half of the record by how unique it is from everything that you hear otherwise on this album. This song really feels like a unique track, but it sounds outstanding. This is it. Full House Brew Crew, Glasgow Grin, out February 6th on Rock of Angels Records. Let me know your thoughts on the band on the singles. Hit me up in the comment section. I'll see you all at the next one. Take care, guys.